At number 10, I've got Utah. Utah has won 4 straight. They've scored 40 in every single one of those games. They're playing as good a football as anybody out there. By the way, they've scored 40 plus in 4 straight games for the first time since 2004. That was when Urban Meyer and Alex Smith combined to go 12-0 for Utah. Zach Moss ran for a career-high 211 yards against UCLA. The defense is number 7 in total defense, number 3 against the run. That team is really good. At number 9, I have Ohio State. And Ohio State is coming off that 29-point loss to Purdue. That's the 3rd straight season that Ohio State has lost a game by 29 or more points. That's an alarming trend. The defense is down. They allowed 3 touchdowns of 40-plus yards in that 4th quarter to Purdue. In the last 2 games, they've allowed over 7 yards per play in both of those games, Purdue and to Minnesota. But for the time being, I guess against better judgment, I keep them in the top 10. At number 8, I've got Washington State with back-to-back weeks with wins over ranked opponents for the first time since all the way back in 2002. They came back from 14 down last week. Gardner Minshew completed those first 19 passes in that second half, which was spectacular. 40 of 50 for 438 and 3 touchdowns against Stanford. That was incredible. He was distributing it well. 10 players caught multiple passes in that game. I tell you what, I really like Washington State. I don't know if they've got a great matchup against Washington, who still controls their own destiny, but for the time being, Washington State is number 8. At number 7, I've got Georgia. They host Kentucky this week with the winner clinching the SEC East Division. That's right, already we're clinching divisions. They bounced back from that LSU loss with that win over Florida. They won the turnover battle 3-0, and they scored 4 touchdowns on 3rd down plays in that ball game. Jake Fromm got back to the efficiency that we've seen from him on 3rd down in that ball game. He was 6 of 7 for 98 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also converted with his feet twice in that ball game. Zero turnovers. That was the key. Georgia, for me, is at number 7. LSU is going to be number 6 for me, and I know that that's a little lower than the committee has them or even the AP poll has them, and I get it. They've had 3 wins against AP top 10 teams this season. Nobody else has more than 1, but as good as their defense is, and they're the number 7 scoring defense in the country with 4 takeaways in each of their wins over Georgia and Mississippi State, I don't trust their offense. I feel like Alabama's going to run them out of the building this week. I might be wrong, but it just seems like this is a paper tiger, if you will. Not for the teams that they've beaten, but because their offense is just going to be unable to keep up with the high-powered Crimson Tide. At number 5, I've got Michigan. They snapped that 17-game road losing streak versus ranked teams with the win at Michigan State. They've got Ohio State to close out the season, but a huge one this week. They're at home against Penn State. Now that defense for Michigan is, I think, the best in the country. They're number 1 in total defense, number 1 in yards per play defense, number 1 in passing defense. That would be the 3rd straight year that they led the nation in pass defense. They're 9 in rush D. They're number 6 in scoring D, and they can run it too. Karan Higdon, 6 straight games with 100 rush yards. He's averaging about 118 yards per game, which is 8th best in college football. I love Michigan. I think they get a win this week. At number 4, I've got Notre Dame. Now, Notre Dame has just been a different team with Ian Book in that lineup at the quarterback position. Book had a career-high 330 pass yards. He also had 50 rushing yards against Navy. Now he's got about 327 total yards per game, 16 total touchdowns, 4 turnovers in his last 5 starts. This guy is very good. By the way, the offense with him in the lineup is scoring just over 40 points per game. They've got 3 wins versus top 25 teams. That's tied with Texas, just behind LSU. Love Notre Dame, certainly on their way to the playoff. At number 3, I've got Oklahoma. Now, I might be a prisoner of the fact that I've seen them so much, but my goodness, their offense is just on a different level. 8.9 yards per play this year. That's on pace to break the FBS record set by Hawaii years back. They had over 700 yards versus a K-State team that held Oklahoma State to 311 yards Just in the game before, they scored on all 8 drives with Kyler Murray in the ball game. And since Ruffin McNeil took over as the defensive coordinator at OU, they've allowed 275 yards and then 245 total yards in those 2 games. That's the 2 best this season. But they only faced, and this is the key, 55 snaps against TCU and then 53 snaps in their last ball game against K-State. So the offense is protecting them a little bit. A guy to watch out for down the stretch, Kennedy Brooks. Kennedy Brooks is averaging 11.9 yards per carry. He's a bit of a home run hitter there at the running back position. At number 2, I've got Clemson. Clemson is playing at a different level in their last few ball games. First of all, they handed Florida State their worst home loss ever. Trevor Lawrence was really good in that ball game. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions at Florida State. That's the first since Phillip Rivers did that in 2003. By the way, since Kelly Bryant left, all he's done, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions, and only 2 lost fumbles. The last 3 games, they've been, again, on another level, 163-20. They've been outscoring their opponents, and Etienne has been very good. 14 rush TDs on the season. That's second in college football. And at number 1, it's the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're number 1 in scoring and number 2 in total offense, despite Tua Tagovailoa not playing in any fourth quarters this season. I think that might change this week against LSU. Their defense is still very good, not quite what they've been in the past, but still number 10 in scoring defense in the country. Tua is just... I'm running out of adjectives to describe his play. 25 touchdowns, no interceptions, number 1 in yards per attempt with 70% completion percentage. That 70% is 7th, in college football. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. They've scored a touchdown on every opening drive of the game this season. And how about this? They're outscoring their opponents by 252 points in the first half. That's over 100 points better than the next closest team, which is Clemson, who's been outscoring their opposition by 151 in the first half. Sensational stuff from Bama. That's why they're number 1.